What up? What's happening? I'm Ross. I want to talk today about the national debt. I think I found in this Wall Street Journal article in one sentence the major problem that's affecting politicians, the country, even all of us about this debt. I think I found it in one sentence, but I'm not going to tell you right away. Let's get into this article. The U.S. government will soon spend more on interest payments than defense. Wrap that around your mind. More on interest than defense. I mean, we're already spending an ungodly amount on defense, and I'm no peacenik. I am second-gen military vet, but we spend an ungodly amount on defense, and usually it's more offense than defense. And we're spending more on interest than defense. Let that sink in. Treasury yields have sprung into multi-year highs, forcing the U.S. government to pay a lot more in interest, putting pressure on the budget. Budget been under pressure. See, that's the one thing I have about this article. It tries to gloss over it like it's just okay. The U.S. government is expected to pay an additional $1.1 trillion in interest over the coming decade, according to the Congressional Budget Office's latest estimate. And if you know anything about the CBO, they always estimate low. So that 1.1 trillion, that's probably going to be 3, 4, 5 trillion by the time the decade passes, unless we change things, which we're not going to change anything. Let's be for real, okay? Interest costs are on pace to surpass defense this year as one of the largest government expenses in budget. Only Social Security and Medicare are forecast to be bigger burdens in the coming year. Only Social Security and Medicare are forecasted to be bigger burdens this coming year. So as much as we pay in Social Security, as much as we pay in Medicare, now we're paying that much more in interest just to borrow the money that we do not have. We're paying more on defense, more in interest than we pay on defense. And here's a chart here just to show, you know, the outlays of money. You got Social Security right here, you got Medicare, net interest, defense, and Medicaid. So yeah, it's a lot. The increase revives long-standing Wall Street worries that the years-long acceleration in government borrowing by both political parties will eventually weigh on economic growth and asset prices. So they're not worried at all about the country hyperinflation, the country collapsing, you know, the same thing that happened to the Roman Empire. They're not worried about that one bit. So this is not even the sentence that I was talking about earlier, but this is another thing that's wrong. They don't care. All they care about is their stock prices and their assets. They don't care about the country collapsing, right? They don't care about America losing its first world status. They don't care anything about that. And all of those things are things that are going to happen if our dollar collapses. If people around the world start to realize that we're never going to pay this money back, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to start ditching their dollars, sending their dollars back to America. And by the way, America will no longer be able to print money and send it overseas for goods and service that actually mean something, right? We're printing funny money out of the atmosphere, and we're sending it overseas, and we're getting real goods and services back right now. At some point, the people around the world are going to stop accepting the dollar. Then all hell's going to break loose here at home. The pandemic sent rates to zero and sparked surge in borrowing that added to years of mounting federal debt. And I would argue that the pandemic exacerbated it, but rates were already at 0.025, below 1. Rates were already unrealistically low since the last meltdown in 2008, 2009, or maybe it was 2012 they started lowering interest rates. But the interest rates have been low, extremely low for last 12 years. It has not been since the pandemic. This thing has been coming, it's longer than the pandemic. Like I say, I think the rate cuts go back to 2012. But the pandemic did exacerbate that. But we're paying the cost for all of this right now, right, with the inflation. The Treasury Department stepped up bond issuance to a record $23 trillion. $23 trillion. $23 trillion. Let that sink in. That's how much money our government spent. That's how much they borrowed last year. $23 trillion. That's how much they borrowed. This is on top of all of the money that they've taken and all of the taxes from all of the Americans and all of the business. On top of all of that, they still had to borrow $23 trillion. $23 trillion. We are so far beyond being able to fix this. It is crazy. America is expected to spend $870 billion, or 3.1% of gross domestic product on interest payments this year. 3.1% of GDP on interest payments. And half of that GDP is all fudged up numbers anyways in the government's numbering system. 3.1% is a lot. That is nearly double the annual average of 1.6% of the GDP since 2000. So we have doubled the amount that we're paying in interest. I wonder how much we've gone up in the amount that we borrowed in that same time period. It doesn't say here. And interest costs are projected to reach 3.9% of GDP by 2034. I don't know who projected that, but I'm gonna guess they're low. And another graph here. Oh, here is the one sentence in this Wall Street Journal that I think can sum up what is wrong with the politicians, what's wrong with the media, what's wrong with a lot of Americans. No one seriously thinks the U.S. will miss a debt payment. Treasuries form the foundation of the global financial system, and the dollar is the world's reserve currency. You know what that screams to me? I could talk about them not missing a debt payment because they're just gonna print the money and that's why they think they'll never miss a debt payment. But the thing that stands out to me is the hubris, the audacity, the arrogance to think that nobody in this world, no one seriously thinks that the U.S. will miss a debt payment. Maybe this person that wrote this article, maybe Americans are oblivious to what's going on, but trust me, our counterparts overseas, they don't have this kind of rosy picture where, oh, America will never miss a debt payment. And they also understand that if America pays us back in printed money, basically monopoly money, it's just the same as missing a debt payment. This hubris that consumes American media, American politicians, even American individuals, we haven't been in a situation, a catastrophe that has really shook us to the core, and we think we're untouchable. We really do think we're untouchable. So we think we're gonna be able to print all this funny money. We think we're gonna be able to go around the world and do all these things, borrow all this money and pay it back with more printed money, and nothing ever happens. We think there's never any consequences for it. There's never any drawdown for it. At some point, this is all gonna come to a head. At some point, we are going to have to pay the piper. And this hubris, this arrogance that we have to think that we're never going to have to pay the piper, we're never gonna have any consequences for our action, it's gonna do us in. And I think for the politicians, it's more hubris and arrogance because they know what's going on. I think for the average American, it's just ignorance. They're not even worried about it. They're worried about buying groceries. They're worried about rent. They're worried about Netflix. They're not worried about the world economy. They're not worried about our dollar collapsing, but it's coming at some point. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime. I think it's gonna happen very slowly and then all at once, right? My name is Ross. If you made it this far, consider mashing that like. If this isn't your first video of me, consider subscribing. Peace.